I recognize that many of my colleagues will disagree with this recommendation, arguing that journals should only publish studies with greater internal validity and that advance more generalizable knowledge. But I would counter that our journals already publish many methodologically weak outcome studies with no more internal validity or generalizable knowledge than the ones I'm suggesting. Moreover, those studies, by and large, are not assessing the outcome of already supported ESTs when they are implemented in real-world agency settings. So please don't get me wrong. I'm not recommending that journals promote the submission of outcome studies with limited internal validity in general. Just those that assess the outcomes of already supported ESTs when they are implemented in real-world agency settings. I would also counter that generalizable knowledge can be advanced inductively. As I noted earlier, the published outcome studies that I'm recommending could provide a basis for using mixed qualitative and quantitative methods to develop hypotheses about the conditions under which ESTs or their common elements can be made to be more feasible to implement and more effective in real-world practice settings. Will favorable publication prospects be enough of an incentive for social work researchers? Maybe not, especially in Research One universities that are putting so much pressure on faculty members to obtain lucrative research grants. But maybe it will be a sufficient incentive for those institutions where such grants are not such an important factor for faculty advancement. And perhaps even in institutions where they are an important factor, faculty can educate administrators about the value of such studies and advocate that they be given more weight in tenure and promotion criteria, not only in terms of their value to the knowledge base, but also to their value as a service to the community agencies. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not disparaging the notion of encouraging faculty to obtain major research funding and rewarding them for it. Indeed, earlier I mentioned that producing well-funded research, supplying the empirical support for various evidence-based treatments, helps pave the way for more practitioners to be guided by the research. And so I'm merely suggesting that perhaps obtaining major research funding should not be the only route to tenure and promotion, and that the kinds of studies that I'm recommending, if done well, should be encouraged and rewarded as well. And at this point, I want to present a hypothetical scenario, and I just want you to read it and see if any of you would be willing to participate. And as you can see at the bottom, no, it's not. Okay, I'll read it. I thought it was going to be the bottom of the slide, but it's not. I want to ask you, if you were the junior social work faculty member in this Research One university, would you agree to do the study, and why or why not? So I'm just going to pause, stand your water, let you read that, and see if any of you would want to react. I'll repeat the question. Oh, Mary, yeah.
Mary Boston, Boston. I think this, I would ask a few questions about a junior faculty member. And I guess the first would be, does this put that person in a bind? If the agency is funding this program evaluation, oftentimes it's really hard then to get results that are discrepant with what that agency expects or would like to have. So while the social work community wants to partner with these agencies, we often find ourselves in this predicament where we're going to look bad if the findings are not favorable for this agency. And at the same time, you know, we want to be in the community. We want to do that sort of research. So I would say it could potentially put this young faculty member in a bind. That would be one of the biggest considerations.
Thanks.
Bert from University of Missouri, Kansas City. It depends where they are in the development of their research and their movement towards
Is
tenure.
there a way to make that microphone louder?
I'll speak closer since I speak. So, it would depend where they are in the development of their own progress towards tenure, obviously. But why not do the study? It can be the beginning of moving on into a larger study with a couple of different agencies. It's looking at a population that has not been well examined for that treatment model. I would encourage it.
Thank you. Laura,
She said it better than I would.
I'd like to go on University of Houston Wellness, but I'd like to say we have been that low-hanging fruit over where we are. And it's hard, I think, to convince a young faculty to do that, but it does create relationships where something else can grow. We did that last year with a faculty member out of psychology, and it didn't amount to anything, it didn't go anywhere. But this year, as a result of circumstances shifting, we're going to be able to do a better, more controlled research study. It's going to be an NIH application. And so it does make connections, I think, with folks where that's a good relationship, I think, to have.
Luis Torres, University of Houston. I'm that junior faculty member, and I would definitely do it. Partly because I'm too dumb to know any better, you know, like to jump out there. But second, because I wholeheartedly agree with you that there is this overemphasis on these beautifully designed, randomized clinical trials that are the gold standard, but we have to be willing to take risks to collect evidence at other levels of that hierarchy of evidence, you know. And if I really, really thought it was going to hurt my tenure prospects, and I would go to somebody that's more established, like Dr. Alvin Rubin, and I would say, well, do you want to, collaborate with us on this to give the study a little bit more credibility, be able to perhaps push a little bit more on the agency to maybe increase what they're able to do, and to increase the chances that we can actually get this out there in the literature once it's done.
could you give him a separate microphone and using two microphones, have him repeat that?
Hi, I'm Lisa Bora, University of Texas Health Science Center, San Antonio. I'm also a junior professor or junior faculty, and one of the reasons I would do it is because of my idealistic desire to help agencies, I would want to have a conversation before the study starts. We may not find good outcomes. You may not be doing this with high fidelity. That may be the reason, or there may be many other factors why you may not be achieving the outcomes that you hope to achieve by the RCT standards. So we would have that conversation ahead of time that if we find that your outcomes aren't good, we're going to figure out ways to work on that and adapt the intervention so that it is more effective for clients. So hopefully with the conversation ahead of time, there'd be some understanding.
Hi, I'm Janice Sparks. I work for the Harris County Area Agency on Aging here in Houston, and I'm kind of on the other side. I work for an agency, and if someone from a university setting approached us to do a study, I welcome it because there is that gap, and that's why I'm here today, because I've been talking to, our administration a little bit about some of these things and the need to know whether or not what we're doing is making a difference. And so, I mean, I think this is just so timely and so helpful because especially on our end with resource limitations, we want to see how we can better utilize resources and partnering with the universities and people who do research would be helpful for us on our end. So I'm just so happy to be here, and I would definitely encourage this.
Jose Ramirez with MHMRI of Harris County. Junior faculty or not, I'm wondering if the university's push to ensure that there's financial balance might be less than supportive in terms of an endeavor like this that would not bring in as much money. Also, there's a history of lacking in ethnic diversity and research in general. So those are just ethical questions I thought I would pose to you, since you said you were presenting provocative thoughts.
Maybe just one or two more.
Hi, Betsy Bledsoe Mansouri from the university. Sorry, Betsy Bledsoe Mansouri from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And I actually would do this. I've done similar things, and I'm fortunate enough to be in a research-run university where this is supported by some folks. But I think the problem by and large, and what I hear from many of my colleagues and folks who come to interview with us and doctoral students, is that the senior faculty, the tenured faculty, their mentors are telling them, do this once you have tenure. Do this after you've written a bunch of secondary data analysis. Go and learn these completely different skills later in your career when it's not so dangerous. And I hear that all the time.